Hello, and welcome to 2021 Sun and Fun and the Florida Aviation Network and another broadcast. My name is Ron Timmermans. I'm one of the many hosts for the Florida Aviation Network, and I'm so delighted to have you join us today. It's great to be back, as the tagline says, for Sun and Fun. We had to miss it last year, of course, but we're back this year with a vengeance, and not a vengeance, but a great pleasure to be back on campus here at Lakeland Linder International Airport in Lakeland, Florida. So the Florida Aviation Network, among other things, brings to you interviews with some very interesting aviation personalities, and today is no different. We've got a whole host of folks lined up for you to meet today and for us to interview, and so you can learn more about them. The first of our guests today is Colonel Luis Garcia from the Civil Air Patrol. He is the wing commander for the Florida wing of the Civil Air Patrol. Colonel Garcia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you back again.
Thanks, Ron. Pleasure to be back. Like you said, it was a shame not to be here in 2020, but we're back here with a passion.
Indeed we are. Indeed we are. So I know that you are actually headquartered for the state wing here at Lakeland Linder International Airport, very near us on the Sun and Fun campus. Tell us a little bit about your organization for those who may not know a whole lot about the Civil Air Patrol or have heard about them before but are not sure what all you do.
Well, Ron, we are congressionally chartered since 1941. The organization is the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force, so we are the civilian auxiliary for the Air Force. We perform 3 missions. First is our cadet programs, where we work with youth from 12 to 21 that are interested in aviation. No commitment to the military, but a great experience to expose our young men and women to aviation and aerospace. Secondly is our emergency services, where we do from search and rescue to disaster relief to homeland security missions, again, on behalf of the United States Air Force and our local communities. And then lastly, our aerospace education. We do both internal and external, working within our organization to promote aerospace and externally with teachers to promote aerospace, STEM. So really, really great. And that's why we have the 3 blades in our propeller symbolizing each one of our missions.
I see.
So that's our organizational nationally, and about 60,000 members. Within Florida, I have about 3,000 members and 70 units spread across the state, from cadet units that are primarily working with our youth to senior units, members that want to work in our emergency services arena. We have 25 aircraft, 30 ground vehicles, and a robust communications network. And again, all those are to help us in being able to support our local communities. When a hurricane hits, we're there helping out take imagery, to help out with our youth in aviation. And it's a really, really robust organization, really fulfilling. So I've been a part for 27 years and still enjoy it to this day.
That's great. That's great. And when you love your work, it's not really a job at all. It's just pleasure, huh? That's great. So what are the age groups for folks to join the Civil Air Patrol?
So for our youth membership, they can join between 12 and 18. For those young men and women that are at the 12 years old, they have to be in 6th grade. But they can go either to our website, the gofloridawing.org, or gocivilairpatrol.org and find out more about our organization. And then from 18 beyond, you join as an adult member. So no age limit on that, and we look for members for all walks of life. We have members that are military, prior military, public service, teachers, or just somebody that says, I'd like to help. And you don't have to be a pilot to be a part of the organization. Even though air is in the name, we have ground missions, we have communication support, we have members that are air crew, we have pilots, we have the full spectrum. So if you want to volunteer your time, this organization can definitely use somebody who's willing to volunteer.
That's great. So for the youth between 12 and 18 that join as a youth cadet, so there is exposure to military discipline and procedures, and what do they see? So
in our program, it's a tiered program. Number 1 is they get an exposure to aerospace education, foundation, and each one of their achievements are named for aviation pioneers. The first award is the Curry Award. Our last award, our final milestone, is the Carl A. Spots Award, signifying the highest rank and the highest achievement. And in between, we honor Amelia Earhart. We honor many, many of, again, our aviation pioneers. And throughout the program, there's multiple things that our cadets do. They test their aerospace knowledge. They understand military customs and courtesies. Again, to instill discipline, it is to provide a framework for our young men and women, understanding military ranks, customs and courtesies, drill and ceremonies, how to march, how to wear the uniform, how to represent our organization, because they are representing not only the Civil Air Patrol, but the United States Air Force. Then our cadets also have opportunity to do encampments, which are 1-week activities to be able to expose them to a lot of the basics of Civil Air Patrol, marching, aerospace, some physical fitness. Again, it is similar to the military, but it is not the military. So we do have a distinction, but it's again to expose our members to that. And at the end of it, they can compete for scholarships for flying. They can go to special activities, which can take them from going to a base and seeing Air Force undergraduate pilot training to civil engineering to different STEM events. So a wide breadth of activities that, again, brings back to an aerospace core. And I wish that I was still a cadet, because some of the opportunities they have today are just absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, indeed. So were you a cadet at one time?
Unfortunately, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. Didn't have that opportunity.
I missed that opportunity, and I wish to this day that I had it, because, like I said, we provide if young men, one of our young men and women, when they join, they have the opportunity again to get exposed to the aerospace. They get 5 paid flights to get orientation in aircraft, fully funded by the Air Force. They can compete for flight scholarships to pursue their private pilot's license. They can pursue this other academies. So it's a lot, and some of our newest growing area is cyber. So a lot of our cadets have been competing in the cyber patriot realm. So taking that STEM, hey, how do you apply these skills? So not only are we giving them an exposure to the Air Force and aerospace, but we're also helping them provide a foundation for their future and for skills that they can take into the job marketplace. So.
Great. Even competing, you said, in the cyber program?
Yes, sir.
So what they're doing, challenges and competing amongst each other or against...
Actually, nationally. So there is a program called Cyber Patriot, which takes a lot of different schools, ROTCs, Civil Air Patrol. So it's not just military-style organizations, but it's across the spectrum, and they compete. And it's tiered organization. It goes from your local area to your state to regionally to nationally. And we had one of the top national teams, actually out of St. Augustine, Florida, that competed in Cyber Patriot and a lot of the different skills in cybersecurity and such. And they took national honors,
wow.
which is absolutely phenomenal, because those are skills that they can translate one day to go, hey, I would like to go work for a Microsoft or a Google. So we're setting them for future success.
That's great. That's great. And all through this, they're volunteer with the Civil Air Patrol.
Yes, sir.
Well, Colonel, you mentioned 70 units under your wing in the Florida wing. So these are spread throughout the state, I would imagine?
Yes, some are based on airports, some are based in schools, some are based in facilities that our local communities provide, but they're all community-based. And the intent of the local squadron is to be able to recruit those members, work with the local community, bring in members from the local community as part of the larger organization. And like I said, we've had organizations from all walks of life. We have some schools that have a very robust relationship with us because they see the value in saying, hey, we are providing STEM opportunities for our students. So we have a middle school program where we partner up and we build what's called a school squadron. So, and we are now partnering with a couple of high schools across the state that have looked to do the same thing in an aviation-related exposure. And we're in those pieces right now to setting those units up. We have units that are on military installations. Again, partnership with the Air Force, such as MacDill Air Force Base. We have a great partnership with MacDill, where the squadron is on the base, they're able to work with the Air Force. Again, getting our young men and women exposed to, hey, here's a KC-135 tanker. Here are things that you can achieve that you want to achieve.
Great. So the commitment then for a cadet joining the program 12 to 18 or whatever is what, once a week, once a month meeting, training?
So it's like I tell our cadets, it's what you put into it, but a minimum is 1 week, one meeting a week. And even in spite of COVID, we have still been meeting. So we went from a physical to a virtual, doing a lot of our training over MS Teams. But during those meetings, it's usually a 2 to 3 hour meeting. We help out with the initial uniform. And we set up that young men, they go through classes in aerospace education, they go through classes in drills and ceremonies. Some of them will, depending their unit, Because each unit has a slightly different focus, they may get training in our emergency services. So when we go do a mission, some of our cadets are within our bases running the computers, running the radio systems. One of our more senior cadets in 2017, because it all blends together, 2017, 2018, when we had Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria, we did actually deploy a couple of young men and women to support the disaster relief down in Puerto Rico.
Wonderful.
So everything they do at a meeting goes through one of those three missions, either to excel in the cadet program, excel in our emergency services, or excel in our aerospace education.
Great. So then cadets have a commitment of a couple hours a week and the like, and your local units called squadrons are, among other things, are there for recruiting new members and the like. But then what about the other services of the community? You mentioned the hurricane support. What else do you do as Civil Air Patrol in support to the communities that you serve?
So we do, in our emergency services, we do a wide range of missions. So our first mission that we have done for as long as I've been part of the organization, and historically as long as we've been, is our search and rescue. An aircraft goes missing, we're part of that. We could be either from cell phone forensics, radar forensics, which are new missions for Civil Air Patrol. We work hand in hand with the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center to be able to identify either from radar or from cell to find that aircraft, or we will actually put ground teams and aircraft up in search and look for that missing airplane. I've been, over my 27 years, I've been involved in multiple searches, so giving back to the aviation community. Secondly, whenever we have a disaster, or national events, such as the COVID event. Different states have relied on Civil Air Patrol to move vaccines, to move test kits. We have been integral with, our organization nationally has been integral with a number of states in helping with that, so giving back to our local community. And then closer to Florida, every time a hurricane hits, our members are involved in doing imagery of disaster areas, providing that to the state of Florida, providing that to FEMA to help vector that disaster relief. We've moved supplies. We've helped man points of distribution with the National Guard. So giving out that ice, that water. So that's how our members give back to the communities. And then on a daily basis, we fly different patrols. So for example, the Charlotte County government asked that, hey, we'd like assistance from Civil Air Patrol in a daily boater overflight. So we have aircraft that will overfly in the Charlotte County area, looking for any boaters in distress. And that's something that the county asked to partner with Civil Air Patrol. So that's just an example of how we intermesh with our communities on a daily basis.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So let me go back to what you said. One of your missions is search and rescue when an aircraft goes down. And that's always an unfortunate event, but sometimes it does happen. So tell me the process when an aircraft goes missing. They have something in the aircraft called an emergency locator transmitter, and that's triggered when there's an aircraft accident generally, or triggered by the pilot if he or she is able to do that. What happens after that, and how do you get involved, Louis?
So actually there's more than just the ELT. So if we have an overdue aircraft, so either an overdue aircraft or an emergency locator transmitter will trigger the SAR system.
And if I may interrupt you a moment, an overdue aircraft will be one that was scheduled to land at a destination at a certain time, and an hour later, if they haven't landed, that becomes an overdue aircraft, and so people think, what happened to the aircraft? Has it gone down or whatever? So you get involved there as well.
Yes, sir. And what will happen, Ron, is when the system gets activated, either as a pilot's flying along, they hear an ELT going off, they report it to center, or the satellite system picks up the ELT. Air Force Rescue Coordination Center will get that initial inject through either the community, through the satellite system. At that point, they look at what are the best assets available. Civil Air Patrol being one of those premier assets, they will say, okay, hey, we have a missing aircraft. It is in Florida. This airplane's been overdue 2 to 3 hours. We have approximate coordinates. We've tried, they'll get our cell phone forensics team and our radar forensics team start looking at the data. Because sometimes we can identify from cell phone or radar forensics without even having to launch an airplane. The technology over the last 20 years has actually helped us with that. And also with the advent of the 406 ELT, because that is projecting the coordinates. But sometimes that doesn't work. So if that happens, then what AFRCC will say, hey, Florida, we have a duty officer. The duty officer will get a phone call from Air Force Rescue Coordination Center and say, hey, Florida Wing duty officer, we have a missing aircraft. here's the approximate last known area, can you accept the mission? And we will accept the mission, and at that point, internally, we will start getting our assets. So potentially from a phone call, we can have an asset up in under 2 hours. And we may be doing that in conjunction with the local sheriff's office, the Coast Guard, or other assets, because the way Air Force Rescue Coordination Center looks is who is the best asset available. And if we are at that point in time, we will be the agency of choice. But again, very robust relationship as the auxiliary of the Air Force, working with our Air Force partners.
I'm sure you've got many success stories of finding someone who went down or had some other emergency. Anyone that you can share with us that would tweak our interest?
There's been so many of them, but what I will say is I had a friend of mine, ironically enough, this is 20 years ago, I happened to be flying and I heard an ELT in the air, reported to center. I was not on an active mission. Come to find out, it was a friend of mine that actually had to do an emergency landing. AFRCC got the phone call. Another federal agency was the first one on scene, but just ironic how the system does work, and you may know personal friends of yours that have been rescued by the system.
Indeed, indeed. Well, speaking as a pilot who flies frequently, it's just great to know that if something untoward were to happen to me in my aircraft and I had to make an emergency landing somewhere off airport, that there's assets available like the Civil Air Patrol and local sheriff's offices and a host of other agencies as well that are going to be there dedicated to help find me and give me some relief from that. So that's always good to know. So thanks for sharing that with us. So you'd also mentioned to me when we were talking before a little bit about your role as Air Force Auxiliary. Can you explain that a bit and your interaction with the Air Force or your connection to the Air Force?
Absolutely. So Civil Air Patrol, since its history in 1941, we have served either with the Army Air Corps or since 1947 as the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. And our relationship with the Air Force has done nothing but grow over the last number of years. Secretary Lee, who is one of the former secretaries of the Air Force, declared Civil Air Patrol part of the total force. So the active duty, the reserve, the National Guard, and the Civil Air Patrol, we are considered part of the Air Force family. What that means for us is the Air Force is looking at the Civil Air Patrol in what missions can we help, because by our congressional charter, we support the Air Force in non-combat missions. So what can we do for the Air Force that allows the Air Force to do their missions? Instead of being able to, so search and rescue being one of them that we help out with. There are a lot of Homeland Security missions that we do on behalf of the Air Force and other agencies. One that we do for the Air Force routinely is aerial intercept training. So to be able to make sure that those units are ready to respond and protect the nation's protect the homeland, we will act as targets of intercept for different Air Force units, and that gives them the opportunity to train against our aircraft. So that's something that we provide to the United States Air Force at a very cost-effective. Our airplanes cost a couple $100s an hour to operate, vice a jet fighter or some other airframe that's thousands upon thousands of dollars. So we bring that economy back to the Air Force. Additionally, the aerial imaging. We will do that on behalf of the 1st Air Force and FEMA as we work through like a disaster. Again, that gives the Air Force the opportunity to say, hey, we can concentrate on other things versus using our assets because we have our auxiliary there with us. Wonderful. And then also youth aviation. We help out the Air Force with that. Some other new initiatives that we've done for the Air Force is pilot screening. So over the last couple of years, the Air Force, this program was done in 2019 and 2020. Hey, we have potential applicants for Air Force pilots, and we did some initial instruction. And we also expose Air Force ROTC cadets both at the high school and at the college level to aviation. We will actually do orientation rides for them. So those are just examples of direct things that we do for the United States Air Force.
Wow, wow. So great support to the Air Force as an auxiliary, and also great support to communities in which you serve. It's just a wonderful organization. It's a delight to know about it. A little bit more about you personally, Luis. You get to fly some of the aircraft, do you?
Absolutely. I've been a pilot with the organization ever since I've joined. And the breadth of missions that we have, as I tell everybody, it's a professional way to employ, as a civilian pilot, my skill set. I've been on numerous search and rescue missions. I've flown our Homeland Security missions. I've flown our cadets. and each one of them has a different reward to them. Taking a young person up in the airplane for the first time, similar like young eagles do, and saying, hey, welcome to aviation, here's your first time in a small aircraft. That's one of the greatest rewards. And then seeing that person later on saying, hey, I want to get my pilot's license. I want to continue flying has been great. So those are just some fun I've had with it. Additionally, we've had the opportunity to fly every year, and the program's been unfortunately suspended because of COVID, but it'll reinstitute as our International Air Cadet Exchange. We have cadets from different countries that will come and exchange. We've hosted New Zealand, we've hosted the United Kingdom, Canada.
Oh, really?
We will send cadets to those countries. And one year I had the opportunity to fly cadets from New Zealand, from the Air Cadet Corps. And same thing, just that excitement to see of, hey, wow, this is great. We're getting to do aviation. So. Indeed.
Wow. Well, that's very exciting and very interesting to learn more about the Civil Air Patrol. And I think for our audience watching this presentation, I think we've had an opportunity to learn a lot more about the Civil Air Patrol. So, Colonel Garcia, thank you for sharing that with us today. And coming up in our next interview in just a few minutes will be one of the cadets with the Civil Air Patrol, Captain Olivia Jenkins. And she'll be interviewed, and we'll learn firsthand from her perspective what it's like to be in the Civil Air Patrol and what opportunities there are for her. So thank you for joining us today for this interview. My name is Ron Timmermans. I'm one of the many hosts for the Florida Aviation Network, broadcasting live and in the clear from the Sun and Fun campus at Lakeland Linder International Airport, Lakeland, Florida. Thank you for watching, and come back soon.